Hello, and welcome to Leadership Beyond Burnout. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson, and today we have with us Jennifer Kim. Let me introduce her. Jennifer Kim is a San Francisco Bay Area based brand building and leadership expert who gets entrepreneurs seen, heard, and paid for being themselves. She's the creator of Master Brand Method. That's a framework that she developed powerful brand archetypes that win customers' hearts while leveraging Jennifer's 20 years of corporate experience and her launching multiple companies. She uses the master brand method in strategic consulting for emerging entrepreneurs and celebrity brands like Oprah Winfrey Network and Steve Harvey, and entrepreneurs, major corporations, including Verizon, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and the Bank of Hawaii. Now, what she's most passionate about in her work today is her legacy project, Femfluence. It's a platform that supports women leaders to fully rise into their influence and affluence so that they can make an even greater impact on the world. Jennifer serves straight up talk wrapped in love because she understands entrepreneurs' challenges. Now, she built a retail business and became a millionaire at 32, only to lose it all in the recession 2 years later. She is now the successful owner of $3 million brand building businesses and the mother of 3 children. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so glad to have you here, especially for our season 2 episode. And you have so much experience, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about that experience of transitioning to becoming an entrepreneur and when you lost everything.
Well, it's a long, winding yarn, but I'll try to compress it in a way that hopefully I hope inspires and also shows people that you can transition at any time in terms of what you want next. And so let's just kind of start with this. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was not a desire of mine growing up. I also didn't want to be a doctor, which, in my culture as a Filipino Asian American, everybody's like in the medicine in our family, or they work for the government. And neither of those tracks tracked for me. I had no desire to do that. And so I thought, okay, next best thing is to feel important and make my mom proud. I will become an executive at a company. And so, my idea going into college was I'm going to run Google one day. And I'm that type of person who's always kind of had a moonshot. I don't even necessarily think I'm going to make it, but I do like to kind of give myself a moonshot goal because it gives me something to push forward to. And some people do the opposite because they think, but if you don't hit it, you're going to feel discouraged. And for me, my mindset is around like, I actually like that because the truth is along the way to the moonshot, better opportunities probably will rise up because you're headed in that direction, if that makes sense. So anyway,
you enjoy the journey.
Yes. And I didn't know that was a good thing. I thought it was actually torturous. I thought, oh God, how crazy am I? Always setting myself up for some type of fantasy in the future. But I knew that if I just put my work ethic and my ability to read people, and that was kind of like, they say you have gifts, talent, skills. I feel like a gift of mine, even as a young girl, was this like gift of foresight. I could see, and not even, well, you could call it spiritual or whatever, but it felt more like I could always see where the puck, the hockey reference, was going, right? I could like, even if I'd like correct my parents, like, hey, why are we doing it that way? It would be more efficient if we did it this way, or,
oh, you were that little girl.
I was that little girl, annoying as all heck. And my parents were like, don't tell us how to do things. And I was always annoyed with things that were, looking back, the status quo. Like I'd be like, why does everybody do it this way when this other way might be better? And so fast forward, get into the corporate world. And one of the things that I also did that, again, super annoying, But I didn't know how to do it any other way.
But you were being helpful.
I thought so. But here I was, a 22-year-old hotshot right out of college. I was married, was pregnant. So I was young and ambitious. And back to my moonshot, right? So I remember my first job was I was an advertising copywriter, junior copywriter for one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world. And I knew that I wanted to do that because if you can understand how to advertise, you can basically accomplish anything. And I want to hope that lands, because advertising is simply letting people know how you can help them. It's also known as marketing.
Right.
But, I was obsessed with human behavior and psychology, and it was actually my major in college in marketing psychology. And so I really was interested in why we make decisions. Always curious about that. Anyway, I asked my boss at the time, and I was 22 years old. She was like 32 years old, about 10 years senior. And back then, when you're 22, you think 32 is really old, right?
You absolutely.
No, it's so funny. And now I'm like, woo, 32, you're a youngin', big time youngin'.
Baby.
But I asked her with my performance review after working with her for a year, hey, if I wanted your job one day, what would I have to do? And I think that's another thing that I think people don't ask enough of their mentors, their elders, people who have been behind them. And I just asked because I had a moonshot. It wasn't because I necessarily was smarter. I think it was my gift of seeing the future and figuring out who are the players. So anyway, she told me some really good advice that I've used till this day, which is take on the projects that nobody else wants, because that's the way you're going to get noticed.
Solve problems.
Right? Solve problems, right? Be valuable to solve the problems, not be part of what is always happening, because you won't get noticed. And it doesn't help that you're a woman, that you're, at the time, of course, I was young, but I've looked young most of my career because of less genes from my grandmother. And I'm not trying to brag or anything. It's just true. Like at 32, I still look like I was in college. And so I worked really hard not to look young. I, wore glasses, had my hair back in a tight bun, wore really like conservative suits, and all throughout my career in corporate, I did exactly what she said, which was I took projects on, and
so she was kind of aligned with your values already as a child.
Yes. And how did exactly, and how did I get so fortunate, right? All of these things, again, it's like you look backwards and go, oh, these were the steps and the people and the things that happen. But I wasn't being strategic necessarily at the time. I was just thinking about the fact that I wanted to be like Britney Spears. And what I mean by that is, there was this quote in the 90s when Britney Spears says, I want to be a young mom and I want to be successful. And I was like, I like that. I want to be a young mom and successful, because I also wanted a family. That was something as a young person, I knew I wanted a family, but I didn't want to give up my ambition or career as a result of having children. So I wanted to have both.
Right. And you know what always infuriates me about that sentence is men never have that thought.
Right. I mean, they don't even need to. Never. They don't even, it doesn't, to them, it's like, oh, what? Like, why are you even worrying about that? You have to worry about it as a woman who wants children. Yes. Obviously, some people, that's not their desire, and that's very cool too. But you know what's actually sad is I'm noticing a lot of young people who work for me, my own daughters who are now young adults, they're really questioning whether they should have families because of this same problem that has been afflicting people like you and me for decades, and of course our mothers and grandmothers before them. But it's a little bit different when I think about our generation. We were the first generation that really was expected to work, Gen X, but there was no coverage for the part that we were also expected to do, which was, and what we are only biologically able to do, which is give birth to children. So it's pretty interesting, right? And I think it's sad that those people now, our children, our grandchildren, and the future, they're worried about bringing other humans into the world for a variety of reasons. But a lot of it has to do with, can I have a career? Can I live well? These questions. And so I think it's a whole nother topic, but it's so true.
Right. And let's take a break right here for a commercial, and we'll be right back.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy.
And I'm Minna.
We're the hosts of Chronically Healthy Life.
Join us Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time on Vitality TV to see how we flip the idea of chronic on its head and create chronic health in our bodies, minds, finances, and relationships, right here on E360 TV.
Welcome back. And you left on a really good note about not millennials and this generation. I'm not even sure what generation they are.
I heard there's
having
alphas now. They're alphas now. It's like Gen Z and then alphas the next. I don't know. It's confusing.
Right. They have a lot different questions because the world looks exceedingly different from the way that we grew up.
Yes. And it's kind of like this real dichotomy because there's so much possibility now because of the flattening of the information
Yes.
stratosphere and access to information because of online and AI and all the things. But at the same time, they're wondering, how can I live in a world that was built actually for baby boomers and older? That's the world was built for them. We're kind of in the middle if we're Gen X. And then here are the millennials, the young millennials, the Zs and the alphas going, where do we belong? And you know, your show focus and your expertise focuses on burnout and preventing burnout. And this type of mental stress and decision making causes all the things. It causes all kinds of physical and mental stress.
Absolutely.
Instead of actually just focusing on, hey, what would I desire to do with this one precious life that I have? Like, how can I contribute while I'm here? And so it's something that I hope that we think of, especially as people who've been through that stuff. I think we have a responsibility to mentor that. You can have both. And in my view, it's based on your values, which, you know, you're probably familiar with.
Yes.
And my values are the reason I actually left the corporate world, just kind of closing that loop up from my story, is I did all the things. I did all the right things. You know, I took all the advice. I made friends in the C-suite. I worked on projects nobody wanted to touch. I was basically the Olivia Pope of the corporate world. Like, if anybody recognizes that reference to the TV show Scandal. Yeah, like I was her. Like, I was the person they called when there was a problem. And then I got passed up for a promotion that I had been promised. And I remember, and it's interesting because my old boss, we're still friends today. He's from Toronto. And just like you had mentioned earlier around like how men don't have to think about some of the things that women do, I truly believe that he wasn't purposely looking over me. I mean, I think there's a subconscious problem there, you know, because the default is, let's go with the person who doesn't have other things going on in their life. They like to go play golf with me. They have less encumbrances. And
they have a family to support.
Exactly. They have a family to support versus a family to take care of and get to all the school things and the whatever. And I got passed up for this promotion that I'd been promised if I took this project that really, really sucked. I'm going to tell you, this project was so big and so hard that I said, I'm only going to do it because I knew how much time I would have to trade off with my children to accomplish this very well. And so for 2 years, I worked on this project, was told I would get promoted, didn't get promoted. And in the moment that happened to me, that what I call that violation of my trust, my violation of the truth, it made me reflect on, wait a minute, like, what are my true values? Because at the time, my life reflected the values of family and work, right? Family and ambition, you know, that whole Jen wants to be two things, right?
Yes.
And I was like, wait a minute. So I'm lined up with that. I'm doing all the right things, and yet I'm still being passed up. And I realized that actually what the words that came up for me were, no, actually, number one, I have no control over my future, because obviously you can work hard and then still be kept down, right? And unless you're the boss. And number two, I realized that this was not fair. period. And that injustice for me was so true for most of the women, but especially the women of color in
Yes.
the organizations that I worked in. And again, I don't like to make anybody the enemy of it, because I think at the time too, people they really thought everything was fine. We
Yes.
knew it wasn't. Like, women like us knew that it wasn't. But how we remedied that is we would just work harder, and we would be a team
Absolutely.
player, right? We'd be a team player, and we would probably swallow a lot of words that we would have wished we could have said, but didn't feel like safe to do that, because if we did that, then we could be called a troublemaker, a whistleblower,
Yes.
hard to work with, right? Too bossy, all the things that women get, but especially brown and Black women. Like, it's
Yes.
like the truth. And for me, I was like, wait a minute, I think that my values don't fit the life I want to live anymore
Mm-hmm.
in that moment. So Brad, my old boss, he did me a favor, didn't know it. I didn't know at the time. Of course, I was angry and I was frustrated, but I was also like, the only person who can control my future is me, or
Right.
I can let him control my future. So I decided that I'm going to shift my values and I'm going to live them. And they became autonomy and justice, like my top two values.
Right.
And people always ask me, like, wait, family's not in your top values? And I'm like, my family is my highest value. And it's by me
Mhm.
individually living my values that my family gets rewards of the time, energy, and presence that they want for me.
Mhm.
And without me trading off my love of ambition, my love of contribution, my love of, like, I love solving problems. It brings me joy. And I didn't want to give that up just because um, I was a mother, number one, and number two, because I was expected to. And so, bottom line is, I made a 9-month plan to leave that job, and I had no reason to leave. I tell people, besides that infraction or violation, I could
Right.
have followed my words, waited for the next project, and said, or I could have left, gotten to another company, which a lot of people do as well, get a better
Right.
job, a better paying job. But guys, if you're listening, I had a $400,000 compensation package with my bonus, and I always earned it every year. I had a corner office with a disco ball in it. I had an amazing team. Like, resources were always given to me because I was such a doer. I was such a get it done-er. And best of all, I had a parking spot, had my name on it. And so I had all these trophies and
Right.
triumphs that said, don't be stupid. You have two
Right.
young girls. Don't be dumb. Don't leave. So
The illusion of control.
the illusion of control. Thank you. Yes, that's such a great way to put it. And I took 9 months to make sure that I didn't burn my bridges. And of course, in my mind, I was like, rage against the machine. I was like, I want to quit. I would have like these angry conversations with myself. But then again, I had to think of my two children. And I said, okay, I'll make a 9-month plan to leave. So I saved half of my paycheck. I made a plan to leave, and I started my own company. And that's when you read in my intro, I started a retail and real estate business that was very lucrative, because one of the other gifts that I have besides foresight is I can smell the money. And
Right.
so for me, I know a winning idea when I see one,
Right.
based
I
on a lot of
always like your
factors.
forecasts. I like to
Yes.
watch your forecasts on YouTube.
Thank you. And so the one's coming up soon. So be sure to follow me on YouTube, because 2024, at the time of this video, it's 2023. I'm going to be sharing those in a few weeks. So bottom line is, I left. I started this amazing business that did over $10 million in a year in
Wow.
women's underwear. The craziest thing. And I had no background in underwear except for the fact that I wear it. I didn't have a background in retail except for the fact I had a background in, right? I had a background in services, not
Right.
products.
Right.
And but I always tell people when they ask me, as a brand futurist and strategist, like, because I can see where things are going, I know the trends that'll make money. The problem is that I didn't know how to get out of it in time in 2008 when the recession hit, and so I had to make another pivot then. But that's kind of that's the pre-story to the story.
Right. And just not to underestimate what you accomplished, less than there's a statistic that talks about less than 12% of women actually achieve over six figures. Most are making 20 to 30,000 in their businesses.
Mhm.
So that was a multiple slam dunk for you.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was because and when I tell this story, I don't want anybody to get any impression that I wasn't scared out of my mind. I was absolutely scared out of my mind. I think that the thing I did, if right, if you will, is that I trusted what I knew.
Okay.
I didn't try to be, well, I guess selling underwear was new for me, but like I already, as a somebody who like knows brands, understands how to market very well, that part I wasn't scared of. It doesn't matter what the product is if you're good at marketing. But it was more that I had like left the safety of the corporate life, the corporate paycheck, and those things. And I was very, very scared. And this is also why it took so long to leave. 9 months. If I could press
That's a
rewind,
long plan.
yeah, if I could press rewind, I would have maybe left in 90 days if I
Right.
know what I know now. But I
Right.
still wouldn't have been the person who had said "f off," I'm leaving. That and I think that that's not sexy to a lot of people because you always hear the romance entrepreneurship stories, and I'm like, I I was a little bit more. I had to think it through. Thank God I had two daughters because if I didn't, I think I would have said "f you" and left. I actually do, but I had other humans to think about, and I think that's a blessing. So,
Right.
but I definitely waited too long.
But I think it's really interesting that these businesses that were your saving grace and that you were able to have success in actually violated you as well because of the recession
Yeah, yeah,
and created another transformation. So,
it did, and that's I think that back to now that we're grown women, like a grown human, during the time, and this is also what makes women so cool, like we're really awesome because we figure it out. Like we
mhm,
figure out, even if it's not, and most of the times it's not our ideal scenario, the things that we have to give up or lose or even be betrayed by, whatever the case is, but we figure out how to get up again.
mhm,
And I think that that is so great how resilient we are, but at the same time, obviously, it creates a lot of burnout over time because, again, the mental strain of having to feel like you have to hold up the entire world or
right.
else it'll fall apart. And I absolutely felt that. And so I don't feel like that anymore, but it took me until after 2008 in that pivot that I had to again ask myself, what do I actually want to do with this one precious life
Mm,
and some of the gifts and the talents and skills that I was given or I had experienced because of my work
right.
life. And I didn't have any choice but to kind of figure out like, okay, either I'm going to be functionally homeless, because I'm going to tell you right now, y'all, I'm Filipino. There's no way they would let me live on the street because I would embarrass them. So, like, when I say
Yes.
functionally homeless, like, I couldn't own anything myself. I had lost everything. I had lost my
Right.
business, my house, my marriage fell apart. And so, for me,
Yeah.
it was um, such a humbling time. And that's the question I always ask: is like, what values will support me next? And am I living those values? And if I'm not, what can I do to live those values? Um, and so that was what happened in 2008. And so then I started ChemCom, which is now Masterbrand Media. It's
Right.
evolved. But the bottom line with that is I realized I should go back to services. And the best thing I could do, because I was good at it, I was known for it, my reputation, my personal brand, I would say, in the corporate world. Because if you're listening and whatever your choice of occupation is, everyone has a personal brand. Like, even
Absolutely.
if you're like the soccer, like if you're the head of the PTA, you have a personal brand at school for your kids that the people see you as this person.
Right.
So I decided go on my personal brand strengths and went straight back to Verizon, which was where I worked. And I said, hey, I'm available for consulting. Would you like me to come in? They were like, oh my God, we want you back so badly. Right. And I felt very good to be wanted and needed. And I said, the only thing is that I won't come back as an employee. I want to be a consultant and I want to pick the projects that I work on.
Which you would not have been able to do if you had said F you.
Yes, exactly. That part, I learned that from my mom. My mom would be like, don't ever burn bridges, even if they betray you, because later on you never know when you got to collect. And I, I'm grateful for that. But I could tell you though, Dr. Kimberly, that I think that even if I had burnt the bridge, they would have taken me back because they were companies, big or small, are desperate for good talent. And that's part of even we're going to talk about, I think soon, the unicorn team framework. That's the reason why I don't burn out. And I've made such a significant shift in how I run companies and help clients run companies, because I was like, I need to be in control. And
yes.
And some people would say, there's no such thing as control. There's no such thing. Yeah, of course, there's no such thing as really anything. This is all an illusion. We're just lucky to be here in human form at this moment. But for me, it was like, if I'm in control of the situation, at least I can live and die by my decisions. Right. I wanted that responsibility of making those decisions. And so anyway, that's what happened. And it did help me a lot, because when I said that, they were like, okay, I was really expecting them to say, no, you got to do it this way or else we don't need you. But I just want you, if you're listening, just to know that, your skills and talents, even in your old network, are probably desired, even if you were a little bit of a troublemaker, because if your skills were good, talent is hard to find nowadays. It always has been, but I think it's even harder now. And so just saying, bet on yourself and the things that you have done well. And just like if you own your own business, we say, go to your former customers first, because they trust you already, right? Same thing if you have to go back to a quote unquote traditional job, because they know that they can trust you, that you're not just some crazy entrepreneur, that you actually have some, you can follow process, that you can do things that, that they want. Because sometimes you just got to feed your family. And I believe in that big time. I believe in that.
Right. And let's go to the commercial again before we get to your unicorn framework, because this is revolutionary, you all. I want you to really pay attention to this.
What's up? It's Brian Randolph, host of Keeping It Real with Randy Boy. You can catch me every Saturday morning at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time on Vitality TV, right here on E360 TV. Check me out, Randy Boy.
Welcome back. And I really feel like for solopreneurs, your unicorn framework is revolutionary. I know when I heard it, it really helped me to put in context what my gifts are and why I struggle with certain things. Now I have a bookkeeper. I'm so happy. I am not playing with QuickBooks anymore.
Yes.
So.
Oh, yes. I mean, I was just going to say that part of what, again, I think if we take a moment to remember and reflect, which I think nowadays we don't do enough of, this unicorn team framework, which I'm going to explain in a moment, literally came to me as a reflection of asking myself, what made me so successful in the corporate world in terms of, I was at Olivia Pope, it was because I could rally teams. Right. And I could focus on my strengths and find the resources to not, I didn't want to do project management anymore. People, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but people who are in the corporate world will understand this. I was PMP certified. I was a project manager. I hate those things, but I had to be those things because it was part of my job. And I asked myself in a moment of reflection, what's the kind of team I want to have? What are things that I want to focus on? And how can I eliminate or at least reduce the amount of friction in my business growing? Because
so you deconstructed your success.
Exactly. I just kind of asked myself, what is that? And I realized part of, even when my first business failed in 2008, it wasn't because of team. It was because I didn't have enough financial resources to stay afloat
Mhm.
when, I mean, literally, guys, whole companies went out of business, like Saturn and Hummer. And
Right.
like, if
I
you
forgot
think,
about Saturn. Oh my.
I know, and they were a huge, sexy little brand in 2007. They were
Yes.
like, it was like cool to own a Saturn. And so, and then yet they went out of business the next year, and they were owned by GM, a huge company, to
Wow.
drop them like a fly just to consolidate costs. And so my point is that when you're a solopreneur, you're probably in the same boat that I am or was, where I didn't have a lot of financial reserves. I didn't have all this sitting on all this cash or all these investors or like people who could just throw money at me. Like I didn't have any of that. And I ran out of money. That's really the
Wow.
reason. And I didn't have a
That's
great
real.
mentor. Yeah. It's like I didn't have a great mentor to help me on that side of the equation. Right. And so again, asking myself, I don't ever want to feel, because the truth is that after that business blew up, besides the story about going back to my old company and saying, hey, I want to be a consultant, in between that, I was um, diagnosed as depressed. I didn't eat for, I didn't know this, but I was basically anorexic.
No.
I just stopped eating. And I had these two young girls, and I used to sit outside and I subsisted on, if you can believe it, I'm just going to just be completely honest. I subsisted on cigarettes and green tea. Like I became a chain smoker. I was so stressed out that I became gaunt. Like I had gotten down to 99 pounds.
Wow.
People thought I was on drugs. I wasn't on drugs, but I didn't know how depressed I was. I mean, my life was
Mm.
I was just a vacant soul. Like I was a vacant human. You know, my soul had
But your
felt like,
family could see you falling apart.
oh my gosh. And this is the thing, is my older daughter, Michaela, who's now 26, and
Mm.
she was 10 at the time. And I remember after, it must have been I was about 2.5 months after I'd lost everything. And I had to move back to my grandma's house in the country. Thank God she had a room for us to stay in. Like we all slept in the same room. Again, I was functionally homeless.
Right.
One day, my daughter, after eating like basically ramen and like fending for her and her sister by themselves for a few months,
Right.
she came outside and she tapped me on the shoulder and she said, Mommy, you're Jen Kem. You can figure this out. It's time to wake up now. And
Powerful.
for those of you that have children or young people, nieces, nephews, etc., like they're so smart, right? Because they're so, like they say, the wisdom of the young people. Like she was just like sick of me. She was like, "Look, lady, wake up, okay? Time to like make us good food, and you need to eat too because you look crazy." And I think that, but that moment of adrenaline that
Mhm.
came over me, that I woke up and I saw my child looking back at me and remembering that I'm here to also model for her and her sister what a
Right.
strong but vulnerable woman looks like,
Right.
that I got to work. So that's the story before the story of getting there. I didn't have that consulting idea, guys. I was vacant. I was lost.
Mhm.
My ego was completely crushed. I felt like I was unlovable, unwantable, all the
Right.
things. So I started going to therapy. I
Mhm.
even went on, again, this is just my story, but I want to be transparent in this because I just want to know whatever you choose to help you get out of the dip. I mean, I was in the depth of the dip, like I was
Sounds like it.
all the way down, my lowest point in my life. I was on Prozac for a while. I had to get myself right and then start eating and sleeping again. And once I got that and sought help instead of, and I don't know. I don't know if my daughter didn't come out. I don't know what would have happened to me. Like, honestly,
Mm.
because I was so lost and I was so ashamed that I didn't want anybody to know how desperate I was and that I didn't have any money and like all the things, because I had very glamorous life prior to 2008. you know?
But isn't that the thing for all women entrepreneurs? We're embarrassed if we aren't doing well, if we can't do all the things. So we work in these silos and can't get the support and help we need to grow.
Yes. And yes, thank you. And that's exactly the mindset and the thought process that went into creating Unicorn Team, because we wait too long to get help. We say, when I make this milestone, when I make this much money, then I'm going to go get help. But you can't get to that money number or that freedom or that space without someone helping you on the things that you're not good at. Because especially as an entrepreneur, you're the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the CEO, and the janitor. You're like all of the roles. And so I invite you to, if you're listening, it's scary at first, just like any big decision is.
Right.
But I say, do the right hard thing first and get somebody who does your basic stuff first. Like in your case, you mentioned bookkeeping, basic admin. Sometimes it's even like you just got to get your house sorted, because as women, like, once a week, somebody to help tidy up or do a deep clean. Like, don't do deep cleans anymore. Like that comes from, whatever. And I say, like, we wait too long. And so the Unicorn Team framework is basically, I realize that there's 3 main roles that I've played in my business. And I had to realize what roles were best suited to my gifts, talents, and skills, and what roles that I would make a commitment to filling. And I want you guys to get clear that this is not people or titles. These are roles first. So the 3 roles are visionizer, strategizer, and mobilizer. Now, most people think of entrepreneurs as visionaries. And I actually think that word is a quite harmful word, because visionary doesn't speak to action. It just speaks to thoughts and words. Okay. Oh, look, she has some big ideas, but it means nothing if it can't catch some ground,
Absolutely.
and so the IZER part of the roles is the action part, because the suffix means to take action. So a visionizer is someone who takes action on their vision. A strategizer is somebody who takes action on their strategy. A mobilizer is someone who takes action on executing and getting stuff done. And again, if you're a solo entrepreneur, I realized that I was all 3. Obviously, we actually have all 3 in us. Okay.
Yes.
But my strengths were in vision and strategy. If actually even more strategy than vision. And that's my thing. That's what I get paid a lot of money for. My whole career was, I'm a strategic, boss. I can see how it all should happen. And I'm really good at translating big ideas into actionable steps that actually the execution teams can take. So remember, I mentioned that I was the Olivia Pope. This is why teams love me and executives loved me, because the executives have these big ideas. I was a junior executive, right? I was a senior director and then a VP. And I would go, okay, so to make
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I gotta ask, did you have a huck?
Did I have what?
A huck. Olivia Pope?
Yes. Yes, I did have a huck. Yes, his name's Ryan. Yes, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Oh, absolutely. I had the whole OPA. I had the whole agency in my own little department, So yes, I sure did. And I think that's the thing about Unicorn Team. Who's your OPA, right? If you guys don't know the reference, Olivia Pope Agency, that was her company. So they'd be like, bring an OPA. I could translate so that the hucks of the world could get her done, right? To make it happen. And he's a mobilizer.
Mobilizer.
Right?
That's what I was thinking.
Mobilizer, right. And so strategizer is the person who, to keep it simple, the visionizer is the personal brand, usually the person, the company founder. And even again, as I mentioned, even if you're like, I don't want to build a personal brand, that doesn't matter. You are a personal brand because you founded something. Meaning, even if you do B2B work, if a company knows you as somebody who gets it done, you're a personal brand. Your reputation is she gets it done. Okay. So that's the personal brand. And obviously the vision the future. The strategizer is in charge of attention acquisition. So it's like, how do we get our brand out there visible? And then how do we acquire customers, right? And then the mobilizer's role is retention. And so meaning like, because imagine it's ops and finance. So in a way, it's like, and fulfillment. So if once somebody becomes a customer, how do they feel throughout the whole process? What are they served with? That's actually the mobilizer's main role as a department, is making sure that the customer experience, the strategizer makes promises. The mobilizers make those promises real. Okay. And so I realized that this is how I ran my company, and that another gap I saw so many entrepreneurs struggling. These people that you mentioned make $30,000 or less, right? And those are the successful ones.
Right.
And I was like, the reason y'all are failing, and it's not because something's wrong with you, it's because either, especially if you came from corporate, I'm like, you're either too reliant on systems, so you have no room for strategy. So you're going, setting up, making all your project management stuff, making your calendar all clean, which is fine if that's easy and natural for you. But if you're doing it because you think you need to be organized to be a successful entrepreneur, that's a lie. Okay. That is a lie. Okay. You don't have to be the organized one. Somebody has to be organized for you if you're not organized. And me, I finally let go of, I am very unorganized. If I showed you my phone right now, I have over, like, I like to show people this to show that they know I am not lying. Okay, I don't know if you can even see the lighting. Okay, this is my mailboxes on my phone. My Gmail has 59,000 unread.
You're kidding me.
Unread. I have a personal Yahoo account that has 9,940 emails unread. See,
I'm feeling stressed.
I know, because you probably have more mobilizer energy inside of you, right? And when I say that, there's energies to the VSM, the Visionizer, Strategizer, and Mobilizer. So I want to say this, Dr. Kimberly, I'm the same. I need organization, but I'm not organized. There's a difference. Okay. So if you're naturally organized, but you go, I don't know what strategy, and I feel sad because my vision's never come true, you probably have more mobilizer energy. That's probably a strength of yours. And what you need is help with strategy, probably, right? And mindset. Versus like, if you're like me, who's a visionizer, strategizer, I need somebody to organize all my thoughts and strategies in a way that help them execute, so that the team can execute. And so
let me pause you for just a second. So when someone is a solopreneur and they're struggling to add someone, is it that they need to ensure that they delineate when they're acting in each role to move forward?
Oh my gosh, if I could get up. Oh my gosh. Okay, wait, I'm getting up. Hold on, I'm gonna be right back. I want to show you this. Okay.
Oh, beautiful.
So yes, so you don't think that you're like schizophrenic or something. In the beginning, I had this hat trick that I used to use when I only had a part-time assistant. And so again, as a solopreneur, you probably have to use fractional resources. Like you have your bookkeeper, they help you with your books every month. Perhaps you have a part-time admin assistant who's helping you with basic tasks. That's still a unicorn team. That's still a team that's supporting you. And the key for it to work as a solopreneur is, how do you use them? So I used to do with my team, it was me. And if anybody knows my company, I have a COO of Master Brand Media. Her name is Sarah Paikai. And I found Sarah. She started out as an intern with me 9 years ago, making $8 an hour. Okay, when I was first starting Master Brand Media. And I told her about this VSM concept. It wasn't called Unicorn Team. It was just VSM at the time. And I was like, when I'm wearing this hat, just know I'm a crazy person. Like literally, meaning I have all these ideas, but I don't necessarily want to act upon all of it.
Okay.
Because mobilizers, I hope this isn't weird, but it really helps me. Like Mobilizers, if I'm a mobilizer, I just want to do a good job. I just want to, like, I'm very good at checking off tasks. I'm very good at taking direction, but I'm not strategic. And I think a lot of solopreneurs get so frustrated because you're like, why did I hire you if you said you could do a funnel for me? And if you ain't got this hat on, which is the strategizer hat, this hat is about telling the mobilizer how to do things. Because if this person is talking all the time, they're just crazy.
Right. And that was my era when I first started hiring like marketing teams and things like that. I was just like, do this for me.
Yes.
I didn't give them, it was like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. Do it. I didn't give them any strategy, nothing about what I want. Is just like, I don't like that.
Yes. Or even asking a question, because sometimes we could go on for like hours on this in terms of how to hire even agencies, contractors, et cetera, using the VSM model, because a lot of agencies say that they're strategic, but they're not. They're actually full on mobilizers, which is fine because someone needs to execute, right? Somebody has to execute. But if they don't have a strategy, you're not a good strategizer of marketing, right? Most people don't want to be marketers. They want to just do what they're good at. Like in your case, you want to prevent women from getting burnt out. You want to help women lead without all of that friction that comes with leading. You know, that's what Dr. Kimberly wants to talk about. That's what that's how she wants to be called on. So this strategizer hat for you is like, that's why we work together. You've hired people because this is the translation to the mobilizers. And one tip, if you're ever hiring a marketing team to do copy, to do funnels, to do any paid advertising, like if you want to do Facebook ads, I just want everyone to hear this. The first question you should ask is, who is the strategizer I'm going to be working with, so that my vision, ultimately, I want to sell 10 units of this product. And I want this to be, you know, we teach messaging. So it's like, these are my stories. These are like, this is the framework that I have to teach people. That's the visionizer. Okay.
Right.
Who's this person on your team? And a lot of them don't have this person.
Okay.
And you have to ask that question as a leader before you hire a mobilization team. Okay. And when I say that, if you're like, I can't afford a strategizer, because strategizers are actually they can be pricey. In the corporate world, they're one of the highest paid roles. That's the department I ran. So these are the little secret. These are the people I like to say, like, this is the Benny Medina behind the J-Lo. If any of you know who Benny Medina is, he's J-Lo's manager, has been J-Lo's manager for over 30 years. And he's the one who makes all the money. She has to still work. Y'all see that? Like, she still has to get out there and do the work. He's the one strategizing. These are the masterminds behind the scenes. And so if you're worried as a solopreneur and you're like, oh my gosh, Jen, now I'm really overwhelmed because how do I get that person? It's a matter of deciding as a visionizer, hey, look, I want to make this amount of money this quarter selling this product. You at least need to kind of know that. If you don't, you should probably hire somebody to help you create that. And then you asking the right questions of a contracted team and saying, hey, look, I hate the marketing. And by the way, be careful when y'all say that, because unfortunately, I've seen a lot of bad actors take advantage of that. Because if you're on retainer or whatever, they're just like, hey, if you don't know what you want, you're going to pay us anyway. Right. And and forgive yourself from any of those, because you wouldn't know better. That's why I'm on a mission for people to know what I'm talking about, because it'll save you so much time, energy, money, but more than that, your confidence. Because if you're a solopreneur and your confidence is shaken, you're going to question every decision you make. You're going to start to feel scarce around money. You're going to start to feel scarce around your sharing your ideas. You're going to still feel like that lone ranger, and that will create you to like not just make bad decisions, but burn out. So,
and I wanted you to share your free gift as well, because that plays so well into knowing what you want and how to direct.
Yes. Thanks, Dr. Kimberly. This is the brand archetype quiz. So if you go to this link right here, brandarchetypequiz.com/Jen, what you're going to get is our brand archetype assessment, which is our model for you discovering your brand personality and your brand voice. And this is so helpful too if you hire mobilizer teams, because at least you can express, this is the brand voice and this is the brand personality of my brand. I want you to be able to write and create things from that place. That's strategy. So we're giving you a strategy tool right here. I'm giving you a strategizer tool. Be your own strategizer, right? Using this tool. So thanks for sharing it with everybody. And you'll find out what your dominant archetype voice is, and then there's instructions. You literally get a full report. It tells you how to use it, and then you can go from there.
Right. And I want to give a little plug for it as well, because I just called a social media manager today, because now I do have clarity, because I'm an explorer, maverick, advocate. So I absolutely know how I want to present my messages. And
Yes.
now I can tell them that. And now I know what I'm looking at.
Yes. Good. And with confidence, and that it feels like you. And
Yes.
that therefore you can say, if you're using this type of language to describe my product, it doesn't fit with the explorer archetype in your case, right? Explorer archetypes are all about discovery and being given maps and like going to places that are, it's the journey, right? Not just the destination. That's
Right.
so it's really fun to learn more about yourself and your brand so that you can, again, hire better equipped mobilizers. These are the most important people on your team. They're all important. There's no more important, but we tend to, they can't do the work for us if we can't communicate what we need.
Right.
And so I hope that the more you guys learn about the unicorn team model, the more you'll see how you can apply it, whether you're a solopreneur or you're building, a lean or a large team. It doesn't really matter. It works at all levels. So
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to thank you for being here today, Jen. You've provided so much insight. You've been very vulnerable and transparent about your journey, which I know helped someone today.
thank you so much for having me. It's been such a fun conversation. Hopefully my props help.
Absolutely, absolutely. And until next time, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Leadership Beyond Burnout. You can find us every week, Thursdays, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, here on Vitality TV.